So I'm presuming all of you are here because you are interested, perhaps, to be a physiotherapist. So allow me to provide you with a few examples of patients that you may see as a physiotherapist. So let's call him Mr. Lee. Picture this, a 58-year-old man at the peak of his career. He's living overseas. He's very happy because his grandkids have come to visit him. It snowed overnight, and in the morning they were all excited because they want to head out to the park to play with the snow. So Mr. Lee, being the doting grandfather, put on his coat and his boots, ran out with them, but unfortunately, he slipped on the very icy sidewalk. Unfortunately for him, he actually fractured one of his cervical spine, cervical vertebrae, which is over here, the neck, and he actually developed a spinal cord injury at the C4 level. You can Google that later, but as a trained physiotherapist, you know that that's not a very good level to have a spinal cord injury. Any spinal cord injury is not good, but C4 would mean that the respiratory muscles are actually compromised, which means that you have to monitor his breathing and his respiratory function very, very closely, ensure he doesn't get an infection. It also means that the function below his neck is actually compromised. He can't feel anything, he probably can't move. So you really need to make sure you maintain his range of movement and monitor until he gets some return of his function, and then you actually retrain him. So that's Mr. Lee. The first day, after he stabilized him where he was, you saw him 2 weeks later in the ward. You walk into the room, and all he can do is turn around and talk to you. He can't even do the simplest thing as scratch that itch on his nose. Basically, he's miserable. And all he wants to do is to be able to walk out that door and go home. And that's Mr. Lee. The second patient, let's call him Matthew. Matthew is an 11-year-old boy. He's really active. He loves running, and he's got a very active family. He can do 2.4 under 9 minutes. As he's walking towards your clinic door, you can see past the glass door, Matthew is actually limping. He's not putting a lot of weight on that right foot. His shoulder is shrugged. He has a long face. Basically, he's not very happy. When you interview Matthew, you realize that he actually fell a few weeks ago and actually sustained a very bad injury. He's actually really scared to put weight on it. When you assess him, actually he has full range of motion. He can move. He doesn't have a lot of pain. Essentially, he's very afraid to put weight on that foot. Through your examination, you hypothesize that he actually has an ACL injury. And true enough, a week later, you find out from the MRI, it confirms that he has an ACL injury. Through your conversation with him, you realize that he just has a lot of fear. The first thing you need to do is make sure you gain his trust, build his confidence, and reassure him. That's the most important thing. Otherwise, he's not going to put weight on that foot. And so you carry on with that. The third patient is David. He's a 40-year-old man, poor thing. You walk in the ward and you can hear him coughing from the end of the ward. David unfortunately came in with a pneumonia. He's been coughing for the last 5 days and has not had a night of decent sleep. You're a student and you're not sure what you can do for David because he feels like he's coughing his whole lungs out. You're afraid. So through the training of your physiotherapy training, you realize that, with a pneumonia, there's actually a window where you should go in and make sure you manage the patient very well. And that was the window. And you work on him for the 4 days that he's in the hospital. So these are 3 examples of patients you may see as a physiotherapist. They're very different condition. They're very different backgrounds, very different factors that you need to consider. And they have very different goals. But you have to recognize that as a physiotherapist, you have the ability to actually make a change to their lives, provided you are trained properly. In trimester 2, we have actually developed a module called the Simulated Practice Education. Essentially, the Simulated Practice Education is preparing the student for what is expected in the clinical setting when they go out, because it's really hard. The transition to the real world is very scary. So we have actually developed this module to prepare them, and they will be actually doing what is expected of them in a simulated environment, but with support and in a protected environment. So that we hope that transition into the clinical setting will be a smoother one, so our students will be able to maximize their time. The 3 key features of our program here at SIT, because some of you might be thinking about, should I do it here or should I do it overseas? So these are the 3 key features at SIT, in the program at SIT. So the first thing is we have very strong connections with the industry partners. The curriculum itself was actually developed in consultation with our clinical partners as well as MOH. And we continue to consult them when we do any reviews. This essentially means that we continue to ensure that what we teach is relevant and our students are industry ready and they can hit the ground running when they graduate. Many in the faculty continue to hold a clinical portfolio. And some of them actually hold a consultancy role in government agencies as well. At the same time, we also hire many experienced therapists to actually teach our students. So you're ensured that when you come to SIT, you're taught by a very strong group of experienced educators who are current in their practice as well as one of the best in the industry. The second point I want to make is that learning takes place not just in the standard classroom. As a physiotherapist, physiotherapy is a very hands-on profession, you expect the training to be hands-on. Yes, we do have lectures, we do have tutorials, etc., but most of the training is actually taking place in the lab. In fact, our students spend a lot of time in the lab either doing classes or they're actually practicing with their friends. They do a lot of practice there. And it's an essential component in physiotherapy training. You need to practice with a group of friends. You need to have a good social group that you continue practicing throughout your program. And we're very happy to say that we actually have a very diverse student body, and they're all very, very supportive. And you can ask the students later. I'm not just saying it. Besides the classroom, we actually send students out. So even though we start CP in year 3, end of year 3, before that, we actually push our students out to do projects in the community so they get to build their essential communication skills and understand how the real world looks like. So for example, some of the photos here are from a module called Health Promotion. Every year, we spend a lot of effort to engage different partners. So it could be grassroots, it could be aging centers, it could be corporate companies as well. And our students actually work with them to understand the needs of the company or the population and develop a program and actually execute. So our students take this module in year 2. And they do so well that some of these companies continue to keep the program they have developed and continue to carry on the program that our students develop. So they're actually making an impact, even at year 2. And the last thing I want to point out is that the program at SIT offers you plenty of opportunities to learn and gain exposure beyond the formal curriculum. Now, learning happens beyond the formal curriculum. We recognize that, therefore, we spend a lot of time actually curating these experiences for our students. Allow me to give you some examples. Now, because of our strong industry connections, we are able to connect our students to different volunteering opportunities, right? So it could be events, it could be programs. You might think that that's a win for the partner, but it's also a win for the students because this is the opportunity for them to practice, for example, develop their communication skills and also apply some of the things that they've already learned in the classroom into the real life setting without being assessed. And I think that's very powerful. Our students really enjoy this. Another thing that we have managed to actually connect our students is actually some work opportunities while they are actually in the program. For example, therapy assistant. During COVID, our students were essential to actually help plug some of the gaps in the healthcare setting when the manpower was very stretched. So during the breaks, we connected with our partners to understand who needed help, and we basically connected our students with that. And our partners were very, very grateful. At the same time, our students gained a lot of experience from that time that they spent in the clinic or in the hospital as well. And it was very meaningful for them because they had enough exposure and training to be able to apply some of the things they have done. At the same time, they could see how what they were doing made a difference to the people that they were seeing. Our students also have ample opportunity to get global exposure.
what are the foreseen challenges as a student and a physiotherapist?
Right, I think that goes to you guys.
I mean, I only can speak as for student. I think for me, because so for mini background, I came from TP and I did diploma in medical biotech. So my course was science related, but in terms of similarity, I don't really find a lot of similarities. Because one is more in depth into like healthcare sector, whereas what I did was a lab work. So when I come into this school, I was a bit taken aback by the curriculum in general. That's the first thing. I think a lot of year ones go through that in general lah. So because we follow trimester-based school and all that, so it could really get to a point where it's very packed. But there are also reasons why it's arranged in this way as well, because we are already having a 4-year course of study. So if you want to make it into a semester, then it's probably going to take like 6 years, which we all pretty sure don't want that, right? Yeah, so I think one main challenge is the curriculum. It was really very packed within each trimester because we're taking a lot of modules. But then with that being said, I think one very good thing about our batch is that we have very, very supportive peers. Because one very important thing that we cover is that our curriculum is really based on practicals. We are practicing on our peers. We are treating them like patients, and every day we have some prac, and it could be quite long. And sometimes we come back on an extra day just to come and practice. So I think one important thing is that when we come to this school, right, it's very important to make friends and connections. At the end of the day, we are the only school in Singapore that consists of physiotherapy course. So everyone is going to be your colleague when you graduate. So to keep good connections and just creating network with each other, I think that would help a lot.
Now, I was just going to add on, yes, it sounds like it's very tough, but there is life beyond the physio school. It's not just work and no play. For example, Ranjini actually holds many other portfolios. She juggles a lot of other things. She's like a student leader. She's the leader of the SMC. What else are you?
I'm also in soccer CCA.
See?
Yeah.
Right, that on top of the curriculum. And I think both of you also, she plays hockey, right? Yeah, so you know how taxing all this sports training is. They are managing to manage. So it is tough, but it is definitely manageable. Okay.
I think just to add on to that, I feel like what we are all trying to say is that it's not really about just classroom, just studying and then going back home. Because especially uni is like one of the last stages where you're actually studying, right, unless you want to continue. So it's very important to put yourself out there. Just go around joining CCAs. It doesn't have to be sports, it can be anything. We have a lot of CCAs actually. You can come for our club fest during August lah. Then you just to put out there, just to enjoy yourself. You are studying, but you also try to do some creative activities. Like example, now emceeing also. This could be something that you just put yourself out there. Because at the end of the day, as a healthcare worker, you need to learn how to communicate very well. Patient communication is really important. You get to hone all these soft skills. So I think that's one thing I would like to advise as a student. It's just to not focus on studying, but also have a balance between everything else.
I'd like to maybe give a round of applause to the students. I think they did extremely well. Thank you very much for your attention, and come by and drop by at our booth. Have a good rest of the afternoon.